All right, let's talk about something that sounds like the most boring news story in Kenosha County. And then let's talk about why it's actually a pretty good instruction manual for your driveway. Here's what happened. Back on the 7th of August, Kenosha County announced that S&P Global had confirmed its AAA bond rating. Sixth year in a row. Stable outlook. And the reasons they gave were about as unglamorous as reasons get: healthy reserve funds, careful financial management, steady economic growth in the area. Nobody's writing a movie about that, but here's the thing, that's exactly why it works. Only 7 counties in the whole state of Wisconsin hold a AAA rating from a major agency. 7. And the county board chairman, Mark Nordegen, made a point that stuck with me. That rating means when the county needs to borrow money for a big project, it borrows at a better interest rate, which saves taxpayers real money. Not someday. Every single time they finance something. So think about what that actually means. The good standing was earned years before the money was needed, not during a crisis, not while scrambling, years earlier quietly when nothing was on fire. And I'm going to tell you right now, your driveway, your patio, your foundation, they all work on that exact same principle. Concrete that gets looked at and sealed on a schedule stays cheap. Concrete that gets ignored doesn't just stay quiet forever. It eventually hands you a bill and it picks the timing, not you. So what does a strong balance sheet look like for a homeowner? Most of the concrete work I get called out for in Kenosha became urgent because nobody looked at it for 6 or 7 years. That's really the whole story. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't bad concrete. It's that by the time a slab is obviously failing, you can see it from the street, your neighbors mentioned it, the cheap options have already expired. They were available 3 years ago. They're gone now. A plan fixes that, and the plan is genuinely simple. Walk your property twice a year. Write down what changed since the last time you walked it. Then decide what gets handled this season and what just gets watched. That's it, that's the whole system. Sealing, joint maintenance, patching the small cracks while they're still small, that's your reserve fund. Low cost. Predictable. You can budget for it without thinking hard about it. And what it buys you is the right to choose when the bigger work happens, instead of having a February freeze choose for you. Now let's get practical, because not every crack is a crisis. And honestly, not every smooth-looking surface is healthy either. Let me walk you through how to read what you're actually looking at. Hairline cracks on the surface with no height difference between the two sides. That's usually normal shrinkage. Concrete moves as it cures and it keeps moving with the seasons. Monitor it, seal it on schedule, don't lose sleep. Flaking or pitting on the surface, where it almost looks like the top layer is coming off in little chips. That's freeze-thaw damage, and around here it's very often made worse by de-icing salt. That one I'd want addressed within a season, because that surface layer is what's protecting everything underneath it. One slab sitting noticeably lower than the one next to it. Now we're talking about what's underneath. That's base washout or settlement, and the problem isn't the concrete at all. Investigate that this year. A wide crack where one side has actually dropped below the other, vertical displacement, that's structural movement. That's not cosmetic, and it's not going to knit itself back together. Get eyes on it now. And water pooling against your house. Get that evaluated now, no waiting. That's a slope problem sending runoff straight at your foundation, and every rain makes it worse. So the first 2 belong in a maintenance budget. The last 3 belong in a project budget. And the difference between those 2 categories is usually nothing more than a few years of paying attention. Now timing. Because in southeast Wisconsin, timing isn't a detail, it's most of the game. Here's the physics, and it's brutally simple. Water gets into a crack, it freezes. Freezing water expands, so it pushes the crack wider. Then it thaws, more water gets in, and it does the whole thing again. Over and over all winter long. Your concrete is basically getting slowly pried apart, one cold night at a time. That's why late summer and early fall are the best window for corrective work here, in Kenosha, in Pleasant Prairie, out in summers. A 1/4-inch crack you fix in September is a straightforward job. That same crack come April is usually not a crack anymore. It's a project. So if you're wondering what order to do things in, here's how I'd sequence it. First, anything moving water toward your house. Grading, downspout runoff, low slabs sitting right up against the foundation. That's number 1, and it's not close. Second, open cracks and failing joints. Get those closed before the first hard freeze. Third, if there's a surface you already know can't be saved, schedule the full replacement for the following spring. You don't have to rush that one, you just have to plan it. And fourth, cosmetic stuff. The new patio, the decorative work. Save that for a season when nothing structural is competing for the same money. Because drainage always outranks appearance. Always. A beautiful patio built on top of a drainage problem is a short-lived patio, and it's an expensive way to learn that lesson. Now I want to be clear about something, because I don't want this to sound like everything ends in a teardown. Replacement is not the default answer. If the base underneath is solid and the damage is only on the surface, or it's limited to a few joints, then targeted repair on your existing slabs keeps a lot of money in your pocket. That's a real option, and it's often the right one. Replacement earns its cost when the base itself has failed, when multiple sections have shifted independently of each other, or when the slab's just old enough that you're patching it every single year. At that point, patching has become a subscription, and a new pour is what cancels it. Same test applies to walkways and the public sidewalk squares along your frontage. Uneven sections, there are a genuine trip hazard and a genuine liability question, but small height differences can often be corrected without tearing out the entire run. Foundation and footing work, though, that's its own category. That's not maintenance. That never gets deferred to make a seasonal budget balance. If it's touching the structure of your house, it moves to the front of the line. So where do you start? Honestly, with 20 minutes in your phone. Walk the driveway. Walk the patio. Walk the walkways and the full perimeter of the house. Photograph anything that looks different than it did last year. That's your baseline, and next spring that same walk takes half the time because now you've got something to compare against. And if something on that list looks structural instead of cosmetic, get a second opinion on it before winter, not after. If you'd like that second opinion, we're Concrete Contractors, Kenosha. We work throughout Kenosha, Pleasant Prairie, Summers, Bristol, Salem, Twin Lakes, Paddock Lake, Silver Lake, and Trevor. Give us a call at 262-667-5367. We'll come take a look and put a written quote in your hands, and there's nothing attached to it. If the answer is that you've got a few good years left, that's what we'll tell you. The county didn't earn a AAA rating by reacting to problems. Your concrete's not going to either.